Okay, so today we're just basically looking at how to make a thesis. Some of you have probably done it, especially if you've had any type of like English class. I'm sure they've done these. There is a question on your AP test. After the SCOTUS comparison one, they usually have a thesis question. They're going to give you like a potential thing that you could argue sides for. You pick a side for it and you try to back it up with documents that they give you. So we'll kind of look at the basic steps to that. We'll have a little video where our dude goes through and tells us kind of tips on it. And then I'm going to split us up here in a little bit. And we're basically going to write opposing thesis arguments. So half the class will be writing one way, half the other. And you'll kind of follow the steps to making one. And then we'll talk about it and debate it out at the end. And then at the very end of class, we'll see which side actually won the argument, like the real life version of it. So we'll play this and then get going after that.
Welcome to Doesn't Get the Point Thesis Edition for the AP Government Argumentative Essay. Constructing a good thesis is probably one of the more important things you're going to do on this essay because it establishes the argument of the rest of the essay and the categories of analysis. So you can't afford to write a bad thesis. And credit where credit is due, everything I'm about to show you was published by the College Board and the link to the document is in the description. Alright, let's jump in. Here's the prompt we're going to consider. The power of the executive branch in relation to the legislative branch has varied over time. Develop an argument that takes a position on the appropriate balance of power between the President and the Congress. And then they give you three documents you could potentially use for evidence: the Declaration of Independence, Federalist 51, and Federalist 70. Now let's look at some theses and try to determine whether they earn the point. And remember, in order to earn the point, the rubric says that the thesis must respond to the prompt with a defensible claim or thesis that establishes a line of reasoning. Now there are three things in that explanation you should pay attention to. First, it responds to the prompt, and that means that the thesis needs to be on topic. If you write the most magnificent thesis about bureaucratic overreach, it won't matter because that is not what the question is asking. Second, the thesis needs to put forth a defensible claim. That means that your argument has to be factually accurate. Like if you say that the president has the power to rule with an iron fist like Genghis Khan, that would not be accurate. And third, the thesis must establish a line of reasoning. That just means you need to show how or why your defensible claim is true. So let's jump into the thesis. Thesis number one: the power of the executive and legislative branches of government are important because there is a balance of power. Think about it. Does that earn the point? No. And here's why. Is this thesis making a true statement? Yes, there is a balance of power between the two branches. But that's not what the prompt is asking. It's asking you to develop an argument about the appropriate balance of power between the two branches. So this thesis does not earn the point because while it does state a fact, it doesn't make an argument. Really, this thesis is just restating the prompt, which is a big no-no in AP government writing, no matter what your 9th grade English teacher told you. Okay, thesis number two: the executive branch is the most effective branch of the government because the president has many constitutional powers. Does this get the point? No. Why? Because it is totally irrelevant to the prompt. I mean, technically, this thesis makes a true statement, even as vague as it is. But all it does is talk about the effectiveness of the president. Again, the prompt is about the balance of power between the legislative and executive branches, so no point for you. So the first takeaway after these two theses is this: make sure that you are responding to the question that they are asking, not the question you wish they were asking. Okay, thesis number three: the power of the executive should be strengthened relative to Congress because Congress is slow to react and sometimes ends up in gridlock. Does that get the point? Heck yes it does. I mean look, it's actually talking about the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches. It also makes an argument, namely that the executive branch should be more powerful, and then it establishes a line of reasoning. In other words, it shows why the executive branch should be stronger. Congress is slow and sometimes ends up in gridlock, and that is exactly what you need to do. Alright, let's look at one more. The power of Congress should be strengthened relative to the president because Congress is the representative of the will of the people. Does that earn the point? Yes. It does everything the previous thesis did, but notice it's actually making the opposite argument. This student is saying that Congress should be more powerful than the executive, and both of these earn the point even though they're making opposite claims. So what should you take away from that? Well, within the realm of factually correct theses, there is no right or wrong answer. There are only well-argued answers and poorly argued answers. And a well-argued answer starts with a good thesis. Now, right here's a playlist that's going to help you understand.
All right. So basically, you can kind of see what these prompts will look like up here. They're not always like an actual question. It usually just uses the phrase like develop an argument or right, take a side on this issue, hold a position on this issue. It's not necessarily just a does this make sense question mark type thing, but it gives you some situation, right? This one that he went through all the examples of, he showed you some bad examples and then some good ones, right? Is about balance of power between president and Congress. Now the way that this would be responded to, right? First you got to develop the thesis for it, just what your argument is. So he gave us a couple good examples there towards the end. To actually argue it, you're going to have to use whatever documents they list under the prompt. Usually they want you to use at least 2 of the 3. So today I'm going to give you some documents to look at, and I'm going to kind of make ours a mimic of the SCOTUS comparison at the same time as doing a thesis statement. So your thesis will be like which side you're siding with on the court case. Yeah.
Will they give you those documents, or do you have to know them?
No, they'll just give you the title.
Oh, okay.
So that's something we'll review too, just kind of remember the gist of each one. Some of them are pretty straightforward, like Declaration of Independence, you kind of know what that is. The Federalists, if you don't remember them just by number, we'll go through and review, like, I think Federalist 10, 51, and 70 are the ones that they use. They might throw in a Brutus as well, which is sort of like the anti-Federalist version. We read that one, it was a long time ago though, it was one of those packets we did. So we'll kind of brush up on those two, but basically you would have to form your thesis. So write this argumentative statement, and then the writer of, say, this one right here, thesis number 3, they're going to go through and try and back that up with evidence from 2 of those 3 things. You can technically do more, but you have to have at least those 2. Don't get carried away using some outside source that can kind of help like bolster your argument. They really want to make sure you address 2 of the 3 that they give you on the list. So if you want to add in a third to really kind of drive your point home or help cancel out a counter argument, you could, but just make sure that you're using at least 2 of the ones that they give you on the prompt. It's usually they give you 3 and you have to use 2 to do it. We don't know which 3, they just random combo of them, give them to you. So that's kind of what we're going to work on today. The way I'm going to have us run the rest of class is we'll split into partners. I'm going to have us take a look at a new Supreme Court case that you guys haven't seen before. And you're going to use certain documents. It's going to be included as one that you can use, but you're also going to try and use details of one of our older cases and stuff from the Constitution or the amendments of the Constitution as basically your documents for this one. I'm going to have us split into 2 groups because the decisions of the cases that you're going to be working with are a little bit opposing in terms of how they ended. And so that might influence what your thesis is when you go to argue the point on this part. So real quick here, let's go ahead. We will split into our groups and I'll pass around the new case prompt. You can bring your Supreme Court case like flashcards with you just to help remind you the details of whichever case you're on. I just went ahead and jotted down partners for us. So we'll go with this side of the room here. We'll have Juliana and Jacob as a pair. So you guys will kind of come up here. We'll have Maddie Evans. Okay, cool. Let's see. Sloan and IP aren't in here either. Okay. Then we'll have Dylan and Kathy up here. Yeah, just kind of. You guys will be one side of the argument here, and then the other groups will be the other side. So towards the back, we'll have Elmer and Sadie as a pair. We'll have Jensen and Ella. we'll have Cadence and Marie. We'll have Ian and Juan. And then Keely, your partner's not here, so I'm gonna have you hop up and just kind of join in with one of these guys since they're short. So we'll hop in with folks on front side. All right, so I'm gonna pass around this little sheet here. So this is a case that you have probably not read before, not one of our required ones. But we're gonna go through and basically make a thesis and form a short argumentative essay based around this case and the prompt that we're working with. Yep. So, and we got here. One more partnership. I don't know if everyone have it, but at least a partner have it.
Okay, thank you.
So, this case is going to be Burwell versus Hobby Lobby Stores Incorporated. It's a, yep, it is a real case. It's from 2010. Yep. Relatively recent one. So, what we're going to do for our actual prompt, you're going to go through, read this here, right? Religion has been a part of several Supreme Court cases. We're going to read the case details of the Burwell versus Hobby Lobby case. Then you're going to develop an argument that takes a position on what the Supreme Court should decide. Who should they go in favor of, right? Should they go for Hobby Lobby or should they go for Burwell? Which argument should they side with and rule on? And why they should rule that way. So make sure and include evidence from the case itself and the assigned case that your group is going to be dealing with. And then you can also include constitutional amendments, right? So we'll just do it with the sides of the room. Group 2, that'll be our guys up front. You guys can use details from Wisconsin versus Yoder, the Hobby Lobby case, and then constitution and amendments. Guys in the back, you can use the case of Engel versus Vitale, Hobby Lobby case, and Constitution. So, all three of these cases are going to deal with religion in some way. The two assigned cases had different results dealing with religion, as if it took priority or not in the case. So, kind of tie this case to your assigned one or your required one, and see if you can maybe develop an argument where you could use that case as evidence for how this court case should be decided. That makes sense?
Was Wisconsin versus Yoder one where they, the guy didn't want to go to school anymore or something?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so this was the one with the Amish family.
Yeah.
Where they wanted to pull their kids out of school.
Yeah, Wisconsin let that.
And so yeah, they decided it was okay for them to pull out of school based on religion. Remember, the Engel versus Vitale also dealt with religion. Oh.
And then people make them say like a prayer. You know, without like a written. Yeah, school can't listen to it.
Yep. So yeah, you'll go through, again, follow the steps kind of on the board that he mentioned in the video. You're going to pick a side. In this case, I kind of made the one that is your required case kind of help you pick which side you're supposed to go with. Right? One of them sort of like favored religion overriding a rule. The other one favored a rule over religion. Right?
So we, in our thesis, we're also supposed to reference the amendments too, right? More so.
You don't have to mention it directly in the thesis sentence, but you can use that as evidence to back it up. So your thesis statement itself is just like your opening one. of like, this is my side to the argument, and this is like my claim.
I didn't have to read the side. I understand. I love population. Always has some good deals going on.
So,
Because everything's already too expensive.
for which one?
Is there a
Everything
question?
in there is on sale.
Where's the question for?
For what, the Hobby Lobby case?
Yes.
So they're trying to decide, basically, does Hobby Lobby have to provide insurance that would pay for contraceptives, or based on like religious freedom?
Are we doing one?
Here we go.
Mr. Hawkins.
Do they get out of being because it represents their religion to do so?
Oh, okay.
So basically, can they use their religion as an excuse to not provide insurance that pays for contraception, or are they forced to do it by law?
Since
Okay.
we don't use the case details of
So then
Wisconsin
we argue
and in that case, they favor
Hobby Lobby.
religious beliefs.
This is like this is
That's
okay.
Hobby Lobby.
Should.
Yep.
That's okay. Hey, coffee rule.
Okay, so.
But they shouldn't have individual rights if they're not individual.
So yeah, in your guys' case here, basically,
So they have
this
individual
one,
rights, they can.
here's their policy, okay, Hobby Lobby wants to get out of,
I'm just writing.
providing,
Oh. Is that what we do?
We're supposed to be writing on stuff. I'm just trying to just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we would be just right. It's yeah, it's just a thesis statement.
So like this is.
Hobby Lobby should have some contraceptive.
So they need to provide
Details for
the insurance that pays for it.
You're joking.
So you're kind of looking at religious
Yes.
belief
Actually not okay.
outweigh
That's like
So that was
same thing when we just finally got our heads
So
done.
you can kind of compare that
Bigger
here.
up.
Bigger up and over. Does their religion outweigh
He's buried in the right spot.
no,
No, keep moving. He's moving right there.
Okay.
Should take the side.
Hobby Lobby wants to use religion as a way to say like, no, we don't.
Basically, position you could say is like, do we think Hobby
Okay, what were you saying?
by this time?
No, because they said,
So you can come up with an argument kind of based on.
they were making students pray in school, and then they said that that was unconstitutional because it violated their rights to free contraception.
Oh, right, okay, free religion.
So like their employees is covered.
FRA.
But why does birth control be covered by corporations?
And this.
Well, that's a law that we already passed.
I know, but like
It's not the corporation's
This will
insurance.
follow.
So if a company has to provide insurance already, they're just saying
I
that that
just
insurance
love
has
Hobby
to
Lobby,
cover.
so.
Okay, but if you think that Hobby Lobby should still have to follow the law, then that's not going against Hobby Lobby.
it's not that they're not following the law.
It is.
They're practicing their religious rights.
They don't have religious rights, they're a company, not a person.
Whoa, you're sounding aggressive, Joe.
Infringes on other people's individuals.
Yeah, that's, and rights, because they make contraceptives, so.
Right.
You know what he's talking
One thing here, make sure the case that you have here.
Evidence in the case, the website case,
Might side.
and the Constitution or amendments. So what amendment is religion about?
So is it?
So I'm going to go.
Anti-religion.
Okay, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the government side.
Yes.
I think Hobby Lobby is right.
Oh, you want us?
I know, it took me a minute.
Yeah, I was
I was like,
like.
but he just said, make sure you use that.
Yeah.
If you have more evidence on the case, you
Yeah.
can get your views,
That,
and you just kind of. Okay, I'm a little
See,
confused.
that would make me a really bad
this
lawyer
also
if I just
violated
gave
the
it.
First Amendment.
Because with the
Violated.
Engel case or whatever, they cited in
Are we supposed to write it
favor
down?
of the religious freedom, but that was for
I'll
individuals,
just write
not a
this.
company.
Is that what?
Which one?
The angle.
Versus Vital?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I-
So,
So-
in this case, they basically tried to say like, could they have a rule incorporating religion in schools, yes or no? So the argument was like, yes, that could be based on religion, and they said no, that would be like church and across, so they said no, religion could be overruled by the schools.
So if I ruled in favor of whatever the other person is, of the government, because that's right, like I can do that?
So you could say, like for this case, it would probably be easiest based on your case to say, hey, we saw a rule get
We're gonna overturn this one.
overridden, or sorry, we saw the First Amendment religious thing get overridden by a state in government, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, we see Hobby Lobby's religious decision getting overridden by the
So
state
do we argue now?
government.
Let's read the
No,
groups.
we're just arguing with each other about which side we're
So maybe
taking.
you could use that to kind of back us up.
So in the thesis, are we supposed to use information from Engel v. Patel to, again, in the thesis? Or is that just like to create the thesis?
Yeah, you don't have to cite it in the thesis
Okay.
itself.
So,
This thesis, you're gonna just kind of express the side you're gonna take.
okay.
Present the sort of like defensible. And
Yeah.
the like paragraphs that follow is when you'll say, hey, I can see that because of this from Engel versus Patel.
Right.
We can see it because of this aspect of the Hobby Lobby case, and maybe the amendment in the Constitution.
So are we writing the whole thing or just the thesis? We're writing the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, just to clarify, you'll write your thesis. Once you got a thesis, I'll take a look at it and then just write out kind of how you would argue this case.
Okay, but we don't have to write like an actual essay, we just have to be like, or we have to write an actual essay. I'm
A brief one, a brief.
A brief.
Just like a paragraph. You fill in a paragraph. I'm filling a paragraph.
Just kind of go through, tell me what would be like your main arguments to back this up.
Okay.
Like, what part of the case are you gonna say gives you the evidence to side with your argument? What part of the Constitution does?
Yeah, no, I wrote, Hobby Lobby should have to pay for contraceptives because religious beliefs vary from individual to individual and should not be forced upon all workers at Hobby Lobby.
Yep, so we're going on that track here. Took a side. I've got a defensible claim talking about possibly
We're
having some
partners, right?
violation.
Oh, I guess you're right, yeah, okay, so we'll keep your.
And then you would just explain your reasoning for
Okay.
that.
What?
Yeah,
What do you,
change it if you'd like.
No, accurate
In
and
this case, this precedent that makes
back to back.
you can say this also relates to
That one I'm not sure to include.
you can bring up like the First Amendment tie in there too. And so you guys can make just kind of a condensed, kind of like what this is, just like bullet point argument.
I
And see if you can argue out your side of the case.
So is this going to go shady or is it going to be Declaration of Independence federal like on the actual thesis?
I think so.
Is this like it's legit what it's gonna be?
No, this is not a good question.
Well, I mean, well, yeah.
I'm in here, what do you think, like this?
Like, is it going to use court cases or do we think it's going to use?
I think it's going to use federal and other documents.
Once you get your basic claim down, your basic thesis, I'll take a look at it. You got kind of a decent thesis, then you'll go through and you can list out your arguments and reasons under that.
And then we can mention our second
Okay.
source.
Dude, think about it.
We have to stay on our side.
RFI.
Top is
Or, that's awesome. That's so cute.
That's actually evidence.
What a dub.
Include accurate and specific.
Little ego boost.
Whoa, where am I supposed to get my sources from?
Chickens. I like that you announced that.
Oh, the question. Do you have the answer?
Yes. Actually, you just said like you kind of got just gotta know.
Link it back to
That's what you
section
did.
of
I know, but it says
to
two
the Supreme Court making that decision. So just alter it a little bit.
Look it up.
Say the Supreme Court should rule that.
I'm not lying.
Oh, okay. So just like I've got at the top, the Supreme Court should rule that Hobby Lobby should have to pay for it. Okay.
Okay, what do you have right now? We gotta sit our argument.
So yeah, remember, they should all include something to the effect of, in this particular prompt, right? Your statement on how the Supreme
I'm not trying to be
Court.
funny.
Literally, there's a last
And then you write
Only.
a paragraph?
or I guess more or less
how should we say?
Yeah.
evidence
Start
from
with that.
cases,
Supreme Court
this
should
case and then.
But basically like in a paragraph.
Yeah.
Except for this.
No, you said not to do that. You said basically like a paragraph. Like you said basically like an essay, but it's small.
In this case,
Oh, I thought you meant the thesis statement was just like a little.
No. Think the statement is like a sentence.
Well,
It could be.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
You actually
it's
try
not
to
really
be
personal agreement.
We're in favor of them having to pay for it.
Yeah, even if it's not exactly what you personally agree with.
No,
this is just to kind of show you how you can pick two sides to this and back.
So,
Yeah. Ours is.
I guess.
So it's all about the.
Something about three just caused that. But I'm-
It's about three.
We believe that,
Yeah, but
So, okay, now we write like paragraph of like evidence.
So what are the things that you would say, right? So if we're gonna try and tie this to Engel versus Vitale, what about this case would I say helps back up my thesis, right? So in this case, we know a religious thing at a lower priority than some law, right? So if we say no, religious freedom, right, doesn't necessarily mean you can put that in school. Schools are part of the government, so you gotta kind of treat that aside.
So, are we trying to like link them together to show why they're similar and so should be shot down?
Yeah.
Okay, so could I be like, the students are the workers in this case, and they are allowed to have their own religion and not have it be pushed upon them by the school or by Hobby Lobby?
Yep. So yeah, you can do it
Can you
that way.
just make
That is a
thesis?
good one.
Lots.
The second.
We just need like a verbal AP test, right? Instead of writing.
Is there an odd one out?
Huh?
Is there an odd one out?
On and out. Not back here?
One right track here. So just gonna start with Supreme Court should rule in favor of.
Because,
In this case, right here,
they
override.
decided that.
Doesn't have to be a law.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is never will. Say the main point of
I haven't listed everything yet. I was just giving you my.
Go right way.
oh, it did, Brett. I think that's really
Stop.
Is it getting worse and worse?
Okay. So. We'll look at, your guys' side is kind of favoring or deciding the government argument. So basically, you're gonna have some type of statement where you're gonna say, like, the Supreme Court should rule in favor of, right? And so in this case, maybe we say they should rule Burwell, right? So we could say like, something based along the lines of like, religious freedom doesn't necessarily extend to business rules. So just watch something. So then you could use different examples from these other texts to help back that up. You could say in Engel versus Vitale, we saw how a religious
Friday, have you seen
school
mine?
got overridden by the idea of having like separation of church and state, right? So having some type of rule take priority over the first amendment right to religion, right? So maybe we can say that here, right? That maybe they have to follow parts of like the Care Act because or sorry, the religion shouldn't override what they have to follow. That could be one of your ways to kind of use this case to back it up. You'd also point out parts of like the Constitution. Right? So where do you
Yeah,
see
the
parts of
Navi architect and our assigned case, the references Wisconsin versus
in
Yoder.
terms of
In that case,
you know like
Amish kid wanted to, or his parents wanted to make a
I did one.
after 8th grade.
So in this case, Levy Vitale narrates ruled in favor of the students having freedom of religion and the school being unable to force anything upon them. In this case, the Hobby Lobby workers can be compared to the students and Hobby Lobby in school. Because of this and the previous ruling, the A should rule that Hobby Lobby attempted to not pay for Awesome.
I'll literally
I don't know any other points to make them. That's basically the gist of it.
So first,
Yeah.
I don't think you have to make
in this
You don't
case,
have to
what
make
this
one.
course you do.
It's an essay, but what in there gonna say for the fuck? Oh my god.
This is just a thesis and you're explaining why.
Yeah, you can definitely make, what should we call it? Take this and
just go with it.
make it longer.
Yeah, for sure.
There's definitely 3 points in there that you can just make them each.
Actually,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good.
like of course I
Cool.
know I ran into the wall.
We did
Well,
it.
I just remember
We talked it through.
I was kind of.
We talked it through.
Yep.
for a second. I don't remember.
If you want to change anything, you absolutely can. You got it. My desk is at Hamilton.
I remember that.
Okay, so here's our thesis.
Doesn't
Okay.
apply to them.
And I still have
Not follow.
That's funny.
Religious freedom.
I think you did, but maybe not.
Getting out.
Yeah, you
That was
did.
terrible.
It's basically what Hobby Lobby's trying to do is not listen to the ACA. And
ELIESS.
It's right here.
so you might say, no,
You see,
you do have to listen to their religious argument doesn't.
Which one is it?
I
or E? My mom, except for C.
Yeah.
My mom always tells me that.
Oh my god. I just remember
ELIESS.
That's really close.
Right.
Court should side with, and in this case, I know the government arguments, but they're represented by the law. So they because and then you can just
Yeah, did we?
I-4-E, except
most of the time.
True. My mom could lie to
So,
me.
speaking of like questions like this, would you be able to use Roe v. Wade as an example case for this, or would you not because it's been overturned?
You're fine. I don't like it very much.
Well, because on here, down here it says government.
No, I know.
If
That's what I was
you were to
saying.
try and include it,
Okay, so then. how
it would be
we, like,
tricky
balance
because
that?
at this point they've like tossed out the precedent for it.
Right.
So arguing that it would follow that precedent is kind of like automatically shut down.
No.
Right.
I think that's contradicting.
So
Maybe just stay away from it.
yeah, I would steer away from it just because like even though I understand like
So, it would take
your
freedom of
points out there,
religion.
it would be harder to try and
No,
uphold that.
Yeah.
just 'cause it's hard.
Overturn. Okay. Gotcha.
So I
I'm gonna read the thesis.
Hayden, what did you put for your, what did you put for your, whatever it's called? Hold on. Okay. Let me spit my gun. Sorry. I said Hobby Lobby is not protected by individual rights and the Constitution, therefore the Supreme Court should rule in favor of Thurwell, demonstrated in the results of Ingalls versus Whiteshell. Hobby Lobby's religious identity should not outweigh the individual liberties of its workers protected under the First Amendment. Wow, that was long.
that also sounded really, really smart.
Okay.
So I just wanted to connect back to.
I'm sorry, have a good day.
So you guys, you'll say Hobby Lobby should, Supreme Court should.
Dubs, dubs, dubs.
Hey,
Right,
hey.
so in this case.
I gotta open
Lobby.
Let's talk about it. Do you have any of these memories?
So you just add that.
Couple of them out
What
for
do you
me.
want to, you want me to?
No, it's okay. I just wanted to know where other people were on the amount of memorizing.
And you'll just
You probably have more memorized than me.
Really? I have like 2 or 3.
I like the themes of the memories more than I do the actual case.
Exactly.
Like I knew Ingo versus Vitel was religion, but I didn't really know much more than that. But I feel like it's pretty easy to infer based off the other news they give us.
Yeah.
As long as you have like an idea of what all of them are, not just by name.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, because they do,
Yeah.
give you the
And
fact
Hobby
of
Lobby.
the case they present to you.
Yeah. What?
And they give you
So,
the
but if they have like any multiple choice, like, oh, this is not fun.
I know. I have McCullough versus Maryland pretty locked down. Marbury versus Madison. Gideon versus Wainwright because I just like that one. And then this one because of this.
Yeah, I
I'm gonna have it
have
locked in now. because of
the
this.
New York versus whatever.
I have that one pretty good too. Yeah.
You want this?
Oh wait, I'm done. But I know I have this. I have a little bit of like that.
All right, so we're gonna take about 2 more minutes here to just kind of write out the main kind of bullets of your argument that follow your thesis. Back it up. Then we will go through, hear the arguments from both sides, and then I'll show you what actually happened in this case. So we'll see kind of like who wins.
I have
Is it 8 or 6?
It's 6.
Okay.
I have
I don't know.
pretty much memorized.
I have the first ones are kind of
Yes.
blurry for me.
I
think I'm gonna fail.
They all are really similar. It's like the first is pretty much mutual, and second is right to bear arms, third is quartering and soldiers, fourth is
We'll write out.
See, I thought 4th was Puerto Rico.
no, I think
Is
it's
it 5 double jeopardy?
5 is double jeopardy.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Technically it was over. 6 is
when this
right
case
to
happened.
a loyal.
Fourth is search and seizure.
Oh, okay.
Fifth is a right to no double jeopardy or whatnot. Sixth is a right to a fair and speedy trial. Seventh is jury, a right to a.
But see, these
Case
are
with
the
the
ones I
jury.
messed up because they're all about court.
They're all about court. Eighth is. Wait, is eighth search and seizure? No.
They expired.
Fourth
in
is.
July.
Is 8 still a court thing?
No, it's not.
Eight.
Fingers up.
Hey, I have a question.
Oh, no cruel or unusual punishment.
Oh, that's it, because yes. And then ninth is, it goes back to something about the, is it the Constitution is most powerful, or is that 10? Oh, no,
Who was it none?
that's about the states, it's something to do with the states.
Hey,
It's like everything goes back to the states, powers that aren't mentioned goes back to the states,
is that
right?
9?
In the Constitution.
That's more of 10.
All I know is 8
That's more 10.
21.
Yeah.
True. Prohibition,
Nine,
unprohibition.
9 does deal with rights in the Constitution. It's the one that says basically you're not supposed to construe anything not enumerated in the Constitution in a way to use it against people.
Oh, that's right, people have rights that aren't named in the Constitution. And then 10 is the one where the rights go back to the states that aren't named in the Constitution. And then after that, it's a little downhill from there.
We probably
Yeah, a little software for that.
11,
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna probably, there will be tears that
I
night.
don't remember the
So I
other
want you to
one.
prepare, I will cry. Yeah.
I know 14 is
The,
citizenship and it goes back to the states.
Okay, here we
No,
go.
you'll find out.
It's
No.
So real quick here, what we're gonna do,
Did not.
Yes, and then 13th is abolition of slavery.
we're gonna go through and see the arguments from both sides here, what you guys came up with, how you tied it back to the case that I gave you, and anything in the Constitution.
20th is something else.
And then I'll show you what side actually
I
won.
think they
Oh,
went
it's
together.
the name, yeah.
22 is when he has only 2 terms because there's 22.
Alright, so we're gonna start, we'll start here with our group 1 side. What was our thesis and main arguments between you guys that we went with?
Oh,
I guess we are.
you go first, smart one.
What? You wanna know my thesis?
Yeah, what was our thesis and kind of main argumentative points? What did we use to back it?
The Supreme Court should rule that Hobby Lobby should have to pay for contraceptives because religious beliefs vary from individual to individual and should not be forced upon all workers at Hobby Lobby. And then we argued that the Hobby Lobby workers can be compared to the students in the Engel versus Vitale case. And then the Hobby Lobby can be compared to the school. And because of this, the previous ruling, they should rule that Hobby Lobby attempting to not pay for contraceptives is unconstitutional.
Okay, there we go.
Woo,
So that
good
could be a
job.
good argument for us. That could be a point. All right. We'll hear another one from this side.
Okay. I said Hobby Lobby is not protected by individual rights in the Constitution. Therefore, the Supreme Court should rule in favor of Burwell. Demonstrated in the results of Engel versus Vitale, Hobby Lobby's religious identity should not outweigh the individual liberties of its workers protected under the First Amendment. So basically, the individual rights of its workers outweigh any religious beliefs that Hobby Lobby may have.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So we got some points there, right? Stuff where we're tying it back to the other documents. What do we have over here? We'll share out kind of our two big arguments.
You just skipped us?
In Burwell versus Hobby Lobby Stores Incorporated, the Supreme Court should take the side of Hobby Lobby because part of the Affordable Care Act violates the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and this will follow the precedent set by Wisconsin versus Yoder. This would also violate the First Amendment since it's going against the freedom of religion. This particular part of the Affordable Care Act violates both the First Amendment and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act because businesses can't be treated the same way as individuals regarding religious views if they choose to run their company like that. Wisconsin versus Yoder previously set a precedent of being able to freely exercise your religion, even if it slightly violates a rule, dropping out of school, which is what happened in Wisconsin versus Yoder.
Okay. We got a pretty strong argument there, right? Got ties to Constitution, got ties to the Hobby Lobby case referencing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Tied it to Wisconsin versus Yoder, right? The idea of the religious practice overriding a rule, right? And how do you guys go?
The Supreme Court should rule in favor of Hobby Lobby because Hobby Lobby has the right to practice their religious beliefs. Our argument could be backed up by the Wisconsin versus Yoder case. We believe the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, RFRA, and the First Amendment overrides the Affordable Care Act, ACA. Some of our bullet points are: the First Amendment correlates and backs up our case because it ensures freedom of religion. The RFRA protects individuals from government laws that burden their free use and exercise of religion. And Wisconsin versus Yoder again.
Cool. All right, so we got some arguments again, tying it back to the different documents here, right? So just to show you guys what actually happened here, right? This case goes through the lower courts. It flip-flopped there. One went in favor of Hobby Lobby, one didn't, so they rule it up to the Supreme Court, or appeal it up to the Supreme Court. Makes it to the Supreme Court, and this was the actual ruling that took place on the case. So in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Hobby Lobby. Right, so they actually went this front side of the room here. So the majority opinion, right, they cite that basically kind of what this group argued, right, that this Religious Freedom Restoration Act sort of gets violated by having to provide these contraceptives that were part of the ACA, right, and so essentially Hobby Lobby does have a sort of religious freedom or right to religious freedom. And so if this is going against their religion, they are able to say no to it. Now there was a dissenting opinion. This was a really close case, right? It was a 5-4 split. So the dissent argued that ruling this could lead to businesses refusing to comply with other laws based on religious objections. So then the worry was like, hey, they picked This side based on this insurance thing, but what if in the future there's other laws that businesses decide they don't want to follow, and they basically use religious beliefs as like an excuse to get around laws, right? So there was still a dissenting opinion, but ultimately Hobby Lobby did win this case, and sort of the right to religious freedom wound up being the winning argument.